PLAYFUL talking. All right, welcome to episode 1 of Wise Full Talking, and I just want to follow up. I've gotten some really interesting replies to the first episode 0, primarily around the idea of me saying I don't believe anything that I'm going to say in this podcast. And I had one friend from about 30 years ago respond and say, "Oh, are you okay? I can't believe you're saying things you don't believe. Why would you do that? You've always been a person who's spoken truth and light, and when there wasn't any." And so I was able to say, "No, I'm just playing this. I'm not. It's not that I don't believe anything. I'm experimenting with not believing anything, and it's a game, right?" And a friend from about 20 years ago at Yale wrote me, and he said, "Oh wow, this is like we're having a conversation again, like out walking in nature, and if not in nature, then with drinks and cigars." And so yeah, that's the spirit in which I'm doing this. And so, in fact, along that line, I'm going to just probably be drinking or smoking something. And this is Baja Peyote IPA, and I'm just going to try this out. It's a fine IPA, although I've been growing fonder of these really light lager Mexican beers, because it's kind of like drinking water. But cheers. And I invite you to imagine that we're 2 or 3 beers into the night, sitting around the fire, maybe smoking a cigar or pipe, and take what I say with the seriousness that you might at that sort of setting. So, Jonathan Beeson, here's to you and to everyone else. So, and I had one other comment from like a friend that I haven't talked to in about, I don't know, seems like almost a decade, and very, very dear friend, as all these are. And he said, with all love and kindness, I call BS on this. And I'm like, oh, great. That's the point. I call BS on this whole podcast. That's what I'm doing. I'm suspending belief, not suspending disbelief. I'm suspending belief so that I can play around with just saying things. Maybe not unlike how Kierkegaard wrote in many different personas and names, just so that you can try things on without having to be saying them for yourself. And so the focus might be on belief, but I want to focus more on the word I when I say I believe X, or I believe A, or do I believe B? Right? And if this spot right here is I, then we're perplexed. Do I believe A or do I believe B? Well, I believe A. Help me in my disbelief, right? There's this constant fluctuation of, it's not so much the belief, it's the I. And J.D. Ouspensky, who studied under Gurdjieff of Enneagram fame, his writings, Ouspensky's writings are like a mindfuck, and Gurdjieff even more so. But like, talk about playing with words and ideas in from the ridiculous to the sublime. But they both speak about the illusion of the I, right? So let's just picture that as the I. Like when I say I believe A, or even I feel A, or I think A, or I am A, right? Whenever I say I, usually whatever I say after that is going to be a lie or an illusion. Maybe not an intentional lie, but a lie to myself, because the I assumes a unified self. And both Ouspensky and Gurdjieff and many others have called into question the likelihood of a unified self, or point to the rarity of a unified self. Not that it's not possible, but that it's very rare that when the person says, I am sad. Well, I am sad. Well, maybe I am also joyful about something else, right? And at the same time. And so when I'm calling into question belief, it's more I'm calling into question the I and the unified I. And this is everywhere. Even Paul talked about that in Romans, where he said, the very good that I want to do, I do not do, and that which I do not want to do, that I find myself doing. So it is not I who do it, but it is sin living in me. And it's like, well, wait a minute, that's not I, right? It's not I. It's some part of me. Like, well, which part of you is it, right? Which part of me wants to drink a beer? Part of me doesn't want to get a beer belly, right? So which do I do? And so maybe I do some push-ups instead. The warrior part of me does that. But how do I know? Part of me wants to get up in the morning at 5, and part of me wants to have a cup of coffee, and part of me wants to stay in bed. And so when I say I want, or I think, or I am, or I believe, like, I've come to realize how foolish that is, right? And so in part, I'm just playing with these different parts, because it's kind of like we have an open mic night, and the mic, whoever speaks in the mic is going to speak for I, right? Speaking for I. And a lot of my parts of myself don't want to come grab the mic, because I can speak for all of us, right? And so they won't speak, or they'll be shy and they'll be off in the distance, or there'll be others that grab the mic and they think that everything they say is I. And so by saying, hey, pressure's off, nothing that is said in this mic is speaking for all of us. And so with that spirit of playfulness, and that spirit of experimentation, and that spirit of foolishness, even, that's where we're going. And as to why, well, why not? For the hell of it, for the fun of it, for the bliss of it. And cheers.